All right, Thad, welcome to the dirt.
Jim, great to be here. Thank you so much for the invite.
Yeah, it's great to have you here, man. I'm really excited about today. So let's just start off with who are you, what do you do, and why should we all care?
Well, I originally hail from outside of Northern Virginia, and today I live in Austin, and I'm the CEO here of Talroo, and we help companies find hires to be able to build their business and to take their business to the next level. We spend all of our time today in frontline hiring, so there's a huge need in the industry today, in the economy today, to really focus on frontline recruitment to ensure that businesses have the folks they need on the front lines to be able to grow and take their business to the next level.
So what kind of jobs are we talking to? Literally any job on the planet, or is it a certain type of job? You know, who do you guys serve?
Yeah, so spend all of our time in, I would say, warehouse, retail, service industries, trucking, logistics as well. So those are industries where we spend a lot of our time today. Really, the heartbeat of the economy, in today's world. Some would during COVID, there was a real focus on essential worker. So we like to say today, essential worker and frontline hiring.
So really a big part of what LinkedIn doesn't cover from a gap perspective, right? Is that part of the idea is kind of like, you're everything but LinkedIn place to go?
That's a great way to think about it. These folks are using different services to find jobs. They're, using different products and services, sites. Our job is to surface those candidates, meet them where they are, turn the internet into a giant help wanted sign.
Yeah. So they're using Monster or ZipRecruiter or an agency or, probably a variety of different things. Is it correct? Well, I don't want to make the assumption. Is that correct?
Yeah, they are. And how we started originally was we actually owned and operated a job search engine. So, we think if we go back to our origin story, we were one of the top, and we still today are one of the top job search engines online today. Our company was Jobs to Careers, and Jobs to Careers is a product under the Talroo umbrella. And when I joined Talroo a little over 10 years ago now, I was brought in to focus on product with Jobs to Careers because I have a lot of experience in the job advertising and job board marketplace industry. And that was our origin. And what we found was as we moved up market, more enterprise businesses wanted different tools to treat job advertising more like marketing. So if you think of job advertising, it's roughly like let's call it a $15 billion TAM, total addressable market. It's funny, people will, you don't know that until you're in it. It's a big total addressable market. But from a marketing perspective, it's still small compared to other industries, but it's one of those industries that every business needs. Every business needs to attract the right talent to be able to grow their business. And so from that perspective, it is a big impact on businesses and a big impact to the economy. But that was the genesis of Talroo, was going from this point solution of Jobs to Careers, owning and operating one of the top job search engines online, to building a platform to allow enterprise companies to reach candidates where they are, turn the internet into a help wanted sign, and really deploy a recruitment marketing approach to advertising jobs and attracting talent.
I'm just curious, and there's a few things I want to go back to because you've been there 10 years. You've evolved in your role and as a business a ton. So there's a lot I want to go back to about you and on that note. But before we go there, on the industry side, what was COVID's impact on this labor market, and how have you helped companies adjust to what has become that increasingly challenging labor market? Like, how does that operate, and how has that specific challenge been overcome through some of the things that you guys have been doing?
So huge shifts in the labor market, and one of the shifts started probably I would say maybe 5 years before COVID, maybe 4 years before COVID. And that was this idea of gig employment and the idea of, I want to work when I want to work. I want ultimate flexibility. I want to be my own boss, and I'm going to turn on an app when I want to work, and I want to turn off the app when I don't want to work. And that was already taking shape, right? Especially for frontline hourly workers, because they wanted this idea of flexibility, which in many cases they haven't had in the past. And so that started taking shape. Then, as the economy shut down, as we were inside and we were looking for services and we were looking for delivery services to be able to get our products in order, to our doorstep, there became a need for more folks to provide that level of service, whether it's Amazon increasing their delivery services, ensuring that, they were able to provide the products needed for us to ensure that our family was safe and cared for based on the products, or if it was food delivery or groceries or anything for other needs. And so that accelerated a lot of this. And then you throw in the mix this idea, well, I need flexibility, right? My family is important. I, unfortunately, maybe lost a loved one and, had a change in what's important to me. And that's family and flexibility and taking care of what's important. And that really changed focus. So what happened was pay was ultimately like key for many frontline workers. Then this started taking shape with, well, flexibility is as important as pay. So if you throw that in a blender with this movement to more gig-based work, you have this interesting concoction that we have today, which is the labor market. And then the third piece of that is throw in, hiring that we haven't seen before as the economy reopened. And so there's a lot more demand for workers. And so we haven't seen this ever. And labor economists will certainly study this for many years. But it still remains very tough today to attract, the right frontline candidates to your open positions.
Did any of that market trend behavior shift the way that you guys were positioning yourselves to the market?
We had probably we were one of the first to really embrace this idea of people want to work how they want to work. So we embraced the idea of gig-based work, and provided services early on to companies like Uber, Instacart, Lyft, DoorDash, those types of companies that were using Talroo to reach candidates and to reach audiences to get to work. And so we realized that there was a shift happening, a number of years ago, and that served us well. And from that perspective, it was interesting because those companies look at recruitment marketing and the idea of attracting a worker like consumer advertising. So they were very focused on, all right, if I attract and I invest to drive a driver, what am I willing to pay in order to get that person to actually drive? And that's equivalent to a cost per hire, right? Ultimately, businesses should measure their cost per hire just as they measure like a customer acquisition cost.
Right.
And so what I would say to you is that from a business standpoint, these businesses were very good at marketing and very good at understanding ROI. Traditionally, as an industry, most businesses aren't very good at understanding ROI from people and from hires. Human resources has seemed like a cost center and not necessarily a profit center, although great people grow great companies. So we haven't quite connected that to what that means for your bottom line. And those companies were very good at it. But if we built product for those companies and we were providing value to those companies, we could see that, in the future, this could be pretty important for more enterprise businesses that are really focusing on recruitment marketing and treating the idea of attracting candidates more like marketing and focused on a customer acquisition cost or a cost per hire.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And yeah, I get the model on the Ubers and the other gig marketplaces, or really just other enterprise large businesses that you guys are serving. I am curious, and I'm sure others listening in, that given that they're business owners are probably curious, do you have anything that any solution for a down market, given that SMBs are such a large portion of that marketplace?
Yeah, great question. So lessons learned. I'll give you our lesson learned from last year.
Yeah.
we had an amazing year in 2022, high interest from companies looking to invest to attract talent. Most of our customers, upper mid-market enterprise customers. Last year, when the markets started to deteriorate a bit, kind of do the cha-cha, we started seeing that, enterprise companies weren't as bullish in their recruitment marketing as they were, because the pendulum went from hire at whatever cost to,
right.
Oh, there's a cost. Right. And we see this in markets all the time. That happens. It's just what happens. Yeah. But when we invested heavily in our customer base and invested heavily in marketing last year, what we saw is large portion of the leads we were generating from our demand generation efforts were small businesses. And it makes sense, right? It's a much larger total addressable market than enterprise in general. So, we looked at a lot of the small businesses that were using our platform, and what we found was something really interesting. One was a lot of small businesses didn't necessarily have a recruitment process. They got people applying for a job, and maybe they followed up with them that day. Maybe they followed up with them a week later. It wasn't, it was kind of seen as somewhat of a distraction, right? And you're only as good, especially in a tight labor market that we're in, you're only as good as quickly as you connect. That's just how it goes. It's like leads, it's like sales, right? You got a hot lead, you better call the hot lead, and you better close that customer. If not, that customer's gone to your competitor. Mm-hmm. Lead generation, whether it's applicants to jobs or whether it's, sales related, it's all about speed to contact. It's just the nature of the beast. And you guys have read all those studies. And so that was one of the things that we experienced. And so we saw kind of high churn with small businesses, right? They weren't willing to invest as much, high churn. Some of it was we were giving them people quickly and they were able to connect those into hires. And some was just they just didn't have the right process. In our industry, there's been a product that came out of compliance that's called applicant tracking systems. So applicant tracking systems kind of act as like, you kind of think about it as a CRM, but it's really not a CRM because now in our world, they have talent CRMs. Yep. But applicant tracking system was just a way where you could disposition a candidate across the hiring process. Well, applicant tracking systems originally were built for compliance for large enterprise businesses. And over the last probably 10 years, like anything in the world, costs decrease and people enter and their applicant tracking systems. So companies that had like an applicant tracking system, they were pretty good, right? That enforced a process. They were able to connect with the candidate. So where am I going with this? What we found through that was we had this huge lead generation source through our outbound efforts, where I would say anywhere between 70 and 80% of the leads were small business. And then we looked at the product that we had and we're like, wait a minute, we can't serve 70, 80% of these leads with the product that we have today because it's built for mid-market. And so it's a classic like product market fit issue. And so we took a step back and we're like, all right, we got to build something. We got to build something to service because it's a big market out there. Yeah. And then if you look at our competitive set in the market, we would compete with Indeed and ZipRecruiter, some of our largest competitors, which are huge. We looked at that and we're like, well, they have a lot of small business customers. So what can we do? And so going back to this idea of like speed and efficiency, we basically said, all right, what small businesses need is they need the ability to source candidates, because no small business says I want an applicant tracking system. They say I need candidates. I need to make hires. What if we could enforce a recruiting process in a marketplace driven system that would essentially give you a personal recruiting assistant for, $50 a month for the software. And we're like, that could work. Like, what could we just decrease the price and give a lot more value? So what we did was we built a product. And so, our product is a couple of things. And the first thing is provide you branding. So if you think of this whole idea of writing a job ad, brand's important for small businesses. right? You're proud of your brand. It's important to you. You spent time building it. And so we need to ensure that small businesses can showcase their brand. The second thing is small businesses don't necessarily know how to write a job ad. It's a distraction. You hate it. You copy and paste it from somewhere else. And you're like, how do you write a job ad? A lot of small businesses don't necessarily have a HR team or a talent acquisition team to do that. So then we started looking at generative AI to basically use our data and build a job template so that if you're looking to hire a store manager, for an example, you could immediately start with a template that uses our data source and immediately build a job right away. The key to that we've seen when we looked at the competitive set was that the idea of building a job was kind of weird, right? It was like answering some questions, form fields, copy and paste, but it should be more like building a web page. Mm-hmm. There are tons of editors today, Squarespace and others, where you can build a template where you can build a nice looking, clean web page, even if you're not a web designer. So what if we could do that with jobs? And then the second thing we said was, no one knows how much to pay people. We have all this data. We process 220 million jobs a day. And we have a lot of data, and we know at real time, like what the market is for jobs. What if we could inform small businesses of how much they need to pay in order to be competitive? And then the third thing we said was, well, people complain about qualified applicants all the time. What if we could create a chatbot experience and surface screening questions in the chatbot based on the job automatically, based on the requirements of the job, kind of acting like a screening. Just as a recruiter, you call, hey, do you have these, this employer has these requirements, let's answer these. And then if they're a fit, could we give them the ability to sync and add an interview right on the small business owner's calendar? So basically go through the chatbot, you pass the credentials and, select 30 minutes to talk to small business owner and sync directly with Gmail or Outlook calendar. And then if we could do all of that, we could really build like a personal recruiting assistant and provide a great way to help small businesses based on our experience in the space. And so that's what we did. And so we're excited to see how this plays out. It's new for us. But I think in today's environment, especially in today's environment, small businesses are having problems sourcing candidates. They're having problems focusing on advertising jobs. And if we can, a lot of it's process driven. A lot of it is just best practice driven. If we can build software around a best practice, then we can help small businesses compete because, right, small businesses owners are the chief everything officer. They're doing everything. Right. And software should be the bridge to help them be more productive. And that's how we should think about software.
All right. Well, now that I know that you guys have launched this solution, we should talk after this because that is definitely of interest for me and all our clients as well. So
great.
Let's do that. So until then, some questions. So you guys launched this when you launched this over the last couple months?
Yes, that's right. That's
okay.
Right.
And in terms of the way that you guys are launching it, because lots of people come to me like, how do I launch a new product, right? How do I launch to a new market, right? How do I do this and this and this and all around expansion for growth, right? So like, talk to me about what were the thoughts that went into how, now that you knew that the opportunity exists, what was all the how?
So there are a lot of ways to do this. The first that I would say is look at your current customer base and see if there are opportunities within your current customer base from your raving fans. So, we have customers that are small customers today that have been around with us for years, but what they were using, wasn't the best product for them. So I would say first, reach out to your customers, have some conversations about what they like, what they don't like, how you can change the game. So I think that's the first piece of it. The second is, look at your competitive set and see where there may be an opportunity that won't be as bloody from a competition standpoint. And we've seen that there are a couple of industries that we think are really interesting that potentially aren't as bloody and a lot more opportunity. I like to focus on value. So, when you think of what you can build and you think about how you can be successful, there can always be a winner in the industry if you provide 3 or 4 times as much value as your competitive set. And that's how I like to think about it, right? We're a value driven economy, right? People love value. Even as strong as a brand is, value is so important, and ROI is important. So, I would say before you invest in a new launch, first understand what you're getting into, who your audience is, who you're building it for, what your customers are really saying. Have some really interesting conversations. We have a product advisory council, and we bring ideas to them, and that's a great way to build a sounding board for your customers, and it's a great way to make sure you're not making the wrong moves, right? Because in business, it's not necessarily what you do; it's what you don't do. That's how I like to think about it.
So when you guys did decide to launch with the customer set, with the, after beta testing it, of course, which I know you guys did, how do you allocate resources or figure out, where you spend what amount of your time or the team's time on which product and when, and how did all that come to fruition?
Oh, that's tough. So, this is
called the dirt for a reason.
It's called the dirt. Yeah. So, where I think a lot of companies probably fail at this is, you have this great product idea, you want to fund it, and then you try to do this with your existing team. And a number of years ago, we set up a team, and their team they're like a tiger team, right? They come in, they build a prototype, they build it really, really well, and then you move on it, and that's what that team focuses on. Focuses on big items that can transform the company, and they invest and they prototype, and we get some feedback, and then we iterate and we iterate. I think that works well for our business to be able to have that small team, tight team. I'm talking 5-6 team members. Where people have a lot of ownership, they have a vested interest in the company and the product, and they want to kill it. Mm-hmm. And so I think where a lot of companies try to fail is they try to retrofit that into an existing team, and that doesn't quite work. You've got to have this idea of excellence, great culture, all of this. We're going to do this behind the scenes. We're going to do this. We're not going to upset any of our other roadmap ideas. But this is a big bet. This is a long-term bet. So I think you have to go in it with that first off. And then once you have that and you have the right people, then that all kind of, works. But it all starts with having the right, like anything in life, right? It starts with having the right team and the right communication and the right alignment.
So how do you compensate the team? Call it a tiger team, right? Or whatever. Let's just call it a tiger team for the purposes of this discussion. How do you compensate, motivate, iron them off, have them be focused on what they need to be focused on without disrupting the culture and what's working so well with the rest of the organization?
Well, I think the big thing is you get them believing in a big idea. It's bigger than this company, right? It's a very large market. We're going to transform an industry. We're going to, really innovate the way companies recruit, especially small businesses, and something you're passionate about. So many of the folks that have been involved with that team have been here for, a long period of time. We have it paired where we have a fantastic product owner who knows our company. He's been here over 5 years, knows our company very, very well. We have another engineer that is an architect that focuses on design. And then we have other engineers that focuses on moving the ball forward based on the design and what the business needs. A few other engineers there. So, from our perspective, that's how we like to think about it. Now, that's very driven to building a great product. And so I think so many businesses, you have to treat it like a startup, right? I think so many businesses will take this idea of hey, I have this really awesome idea, and they worry immediately. They go right into the negative. It's going to cannibalize my current business. What about the people? But you have to treat it like, no, I'm going to fund this startup, and this could be a huge payoff, or it could be a flop.
Yeah.
But I'm going to fund this startup, and I'm going to go all in and fund it with the right people, the right process, the right focus, and then see where the river takes you.
Yeah, that's so your own product person, your own devs, kind of iron off that team. What about on the go-to-market side? Are people focused entirely just on selling or marketing this new product, or do they have some crossover?
There's crossover right now. There's crossover in this period of time, right? And that's the biggest thing is you have to have people that really understand the business and have had experience in the business for the context switching, right? Especially to go from like enterprise, mid-market, small business. Very different in how you think about go-to-market, very different about strategy. And so you have to have people that either have had experience in one or the other, but you can tell can switch. And that's the hardest thing, the context switching, even with like AEs and business development and sales. Like it's tough to have, even though it may seem easy, maybe you've been in the business for 10 years, like me, it seems easy to do because it's natural for you. It's not natural for others. It's the reason because you've been in the business so long. That's why it's natural for you. You can't expect the people to treat things like you do because you haven't been, they haven't been in the business like you have.
Well, yeah. And it's this trade-off of how you build as users or revenue grows, right? And you mentioned that, like, I appreciate the honesty of, right now the resources are the same because I can't afford to just have all these resources marketing this new product because I don't exactly know everything about the way it's going to be sold. We're testing some of that, right? And so like then once you're through testing phase, you're able to allocate some of those resources who are probably better off for the new product or go hire people who are good off. It's not a magic thing. Like these are very thoughtful calculations on your part around how you're involving people and how you're motivating them. And so people listening in, like this is how to expand the right way, right? It's like, as far as you can drive resources being only focused on that thing, great. But there are some sacrifices you'll have to make in order to not overspend by having some of that move slower than you might like. And so it's a trade-off. And I appreciate that narrative there, Thad. I'm excited about this product. I'll tell you that. So I'll probably help you sell it if you want that as part of your go-to-market.
We're excited for it. The other thing that I would say that's been really important for us in our culture, focused on innovation is the realization that we're going to fail. And so many companies, I think, come at it funding a project, funding, a division, and they don't go in it saying, it's okay if this doesn't work out, and there have been cases that we've stopped projects. There have been cases where we've stopped momentum, we've stopped, certain things, and we've said, hey, this isn't working. Mm-hmm. And that's hard for a lot of businesses. And one company that I would say that has had a lot of losers, but a lot of winners, and probably more winners than losers, is a great example of it in their culture is Google.
Yep.
They try a lot. They build a lot of stuff. They have a lot of great engineers and they build a lot of stuff. When they hit it big, they hit it big. But it's okay because culturally they have a view in the world that, hey, we're going to try a lot of stuff. We're going to throw a lot of stuff against the wall. We're going to see what sticks. And when it sticks, we're going to go all in. We're going to go all in when it sticks. And I think that's culturally, if you have that ability with your team to have that discussion, say, we're going to try some things. Not everything is going to be great. And I'll be the first to tell you and be transparent about it. But when we find something that works, we're going to go all in and it's the future. I think that's really important for a lot of businesses because sometimes as leaders, we have to check our egos. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to be, and it's great to be transparent with the team that you're wrong.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you said earlier that I promised everyone I would come back to, which is you've been there for 10 years. It has to do with that whole ego bucket in terms of how I would classify this, but also something that I get really emotional about, which is a founder recognizing that it's time to hand over the reins to someone else. And you were that person that founder recognized it was time to hand over the reins to someone else. You were a homegrown CEO within your business. And I love those stories because it shows so much maturity on the founder's part, but also so much awareness at the same time on how do I take this thing to the next level. And so I'd like to maybe ask you a few personal questions about it. If you can't answer them,
Sure.
just tell me to shut up. But when you were taking the reins over as CEO, and you were having those conversations with the founder around what that would look like, you mind just giving us a little bit of insight into kind of the background of that and how it came, how you ended up taking over the reins?
I'll start with some career advice in general that when I have one-on-ones with team members that I encourage people to think about, especially if I know they're ambitious and they're looking to take their career to the next level. The first bit of advice that I usually provide folks is do the job the company needs really well. Do that job really well. I think especially where a lot of ambitious team members, where they probably aren't as successful is they immediately see that there's another job they want to do. And, conventional wisdom may say, well, I just want to start doing that job. Well, that's kind of selfish. It's selfish because the business needs you to do the job you were paid to do really well. And I think it's a cautionary tale with, ambitious leaders is, you may be here and you may want to be here, but, some people would say, well, they're going to see that I'm doing this. And they're right, but they're also going to see that you may not be doing the job that the business needs. So you have to do both. If you don't have the stamina to do both, don't try to do the next job yet. You got to do both. You can't do one. You can't do the job you really want,
right?
And not do the job that the business needs. So that's the first bit of advice I would say. And so, I've always worked for founder-owned businesses. I think that, when you think of when you think of the risk associated, when you think of the balance needed from a life standpoint for founders, I think that they are totally underappreciated in the economy because of the level of sacrifice that founders have to make in order to employ people, cash flow, everything that's needed to basically grow a business. And so I've always worked for founder-owned businesses, and they've been, I dig in. I treat it as my own, and I think that's one of the things that I'm proud of when I look at my career. From the move from product and engineering to where I am today, I understand the industry because I've been in the industry so well, and our founder has experience in the industry as well, but he's an engineer. That's what he loves. He loves engineering. He loves solving businesses with solving problems with technology, and that's really important to him. And and he's a teacher, and he loves teaching. Whether it's history or whether it's engineering, whatever, and just anything in life, he just loves teaching. And so, when I think of being a founder and pursuing your passion, a lot of people have shared with me, what's that dynamic like? And I said, I'm so fortunate to have the dynamic that I have because the level of trust that I have with our founder is something that I haven't seen before in business. And I would encourage more founders to find that, second in command to really partner with. And that's what I feel like. I don't feel like, I feel like a partner, and it's hard in many cases to see that. I also realize my place. I serve at your pleasure and you have a vested interest in this. You are a founder. I have a vested interest, but I understand my place, and I understand that you've changed my life, and my goal is to change your life. And that's what I strive for. And I think a lot of folks need to think about that when they're, when the founder is actually like taking their business to the next level and handing it over. It's like, has this person changed your life? If yes, then you have to change his life. That's how it goes. You're paying it forward. And beyond that, if you go in it from that perspective, you should change all the lives of the people in your company as well. And if you aren't hiring people where you think you can't change their life, you shouldn't hire them. That's how I like to think about it.
Yeah, no, it's a really good way to think about it. Let me challenge you with something. So now put yourself into the place of the founder, right? Like as he was handing over the reins, what do you think was or you may have already had this conversation with him as well, but what do you think at the very least was the most challenging piece of that for him?
Well, I think that probably the control piece, just in general, when you think of founder, cash flow, everything, especially as a founder-owned business, right? Everything that's so important with business and saying, basically focused, in a certain way. And so I think that's natural for anyone, right? Not specific to my case, but I think this idea of like, okay, well now I'm supportive. But I think what happens is over time, and this happened, a number of years ago, I think it's not something that you immediately do. You test, you give more than you get. What I mean by that is you give more control little by little. You reward, and it isn't something that you just turn a switch. That never works. You really have to find someone that I think that you're going to hunker down with, that, has the best interest of companies at heart. You've tested through the hard times and the good times. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't had someone that you've been in the trenches with in the good times and the hard times, it may not be the right decision. Right. Yeah. I think that's very different. The other thing I would say is when I joined, when we had 7 employees, or about less than 10 employees. And so sort of a Swiss Army knife, doing a lot. That scale, that's important. And what I can say is I've been with other leaders that haven't been in the trenches and, at that level before. And I'm unique, and my founder's unique because, I'm not the type of person that I want to help, because I've seen all of this and I've done a lot of this, and I want to give you help. And, that's part of one of the biggest things that's probably different about our culture than maybe some other businesses, is that I want to help. I want to be seen. I want to teach you, just as, my founder was the ultimate teacher for me on the business and all things leadership. Yeah. And I want to help you learn and help you grow. And I think that idea of being, ultimate teacher is what's so important in business, to build successful business relationships and also just successful team members.
Were there any setbacks or obstacles that occurred either during or after the transition that made it harder than you guys expected?
I would say COVID was probably, like a lot of businesses, it was tough, and going through layoffs, right sizing the team. Our business isn't SaaS, so we aren't as predictable, since it's more of a marketplace business. Even this year, when we think about our business and we think about, we had tremendous growth last year. Business is a lot softer this year than last year because it's a marketplace business, and it's cyclical. And so, when the times are great, like revenue solves all problems, right? that's how it goes. I think probably when, we have to take a look at things and make those tough decisions, and I need a partner, because we all need someone to partner with when it comes to these decisions. whether it's a founder or whether it's a board or whether it's a COO or whether it's an executive team, we all need a partner that we can hash through these business issues with. You can't go at it alone. That's always challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. When you, I can imagine COVID, was a challenge. Challenge for everybody, but, Ed, in your business and what you guys were going through, and, how a founder, I know being one, how a founder gets when cash flow isn't quite what it was last month or last year. Right. And the things that go through their mind, not just around the business, but around their family and around, their life. And so
survival, right? Survival mode.
Yeah, exactly. Was there, anything specific that weighed on your mind during the transition? Right. It's like you're taking care of somebody's baby. I'm about to be a dad. I cannot imagine having to take care of somebody else's baby. Right. It's kind of the same thing. Yeah. More or less.
Yeah. All the time, all the time, and a lot of reasons. And the reason why is because, as I said earlier, my life's been changed, and I, as the type of person I am, I want to change his life. And part of it is giving him more time to do what he loves. But also part of it is from a financial perspective. And ultimately it's about our financial performance. And when financial performance isn't strong, then it's, from my perspective, I question, is it macro? Is it execution? Is it alignment? What's really the driver of a lot of this? And so that's probably when it weighs on me more than I think, making the right decisions, second guessing, is this what our founder would do? Am I channeling that energy? But ultimately you have to stand up for what you believe in as well as a leader, and people are wired differently. Like we're different people, and we all have a different leadership style. Mine, is different. And I think that respect is what's important as well, to respect that we all have our differences, that we can disagree. But at the end of the day, I go in it like any great leader and say, hey, this is what I believe. These are my thoughts. This is why. Here are the three things why I believe this. If there's not consensus, then I still execute based on what needs to happen, based on what my founder needs and wants. But we also have that ability to have that dialogue, that tough dialogue. But at the end of the day, you do what you need to do. And I think that's where ego can kind of take play, is when you don't understand it's my way or the highway, then that's when the friction happens. And I think that, stronger minds prevail in many cases.
Now that you've been through it, is there anything that you would do differently if the same situation were to arise, or that you can tell the others so that they might not make the same mistake?
Yeah, I would say the big thing would be, I moved in this role about a little over 5 years ago, and everyone's like, big picture. Okay. It's a product guy, like getting in the weeds, figuring out what customers want, turn the pain points into solving problems and through great product, and big picture. Biggest bullshit that that's ever happened in business, in my opinion, in that no one qualifies it. And I'm here to tell you there's a qualifier, and the qualifier is you can't think big picture if you don't know if you don't know what's happening, in the weeds. Yeah. There's no way to adjust this big picture thinking if you don't know what your customers are thinking, what your team is thinking, if you're aligned, and all of that's being in the weeds. And you have to get in the weeds and understand it and have a worldly view of your business and where you're maybe misaligned before you can actually be aligned. And that's probably the biggest, I learned that lesson, and, we're stronger for it because all the answers are in the weeds. You just gotta get to them. Yeah.
Strategy is in the details, right? Mm-hmm. There's so much truth to that statement.
Right.
All right. So I'm gonna flip the script for a second. I've got our founder 5 as we start to close out the show, which is 5 questions, quick hit questions, all about you and your growth. All right. So let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Oh man, that was quick. All right. First one, what is the top metric or KPI that you are relentlessly focused on?
Dollar retention.
That's a good one. Any specific one between net retention or gross retention?
Well, from my perspective, since our customers expand pretty quickly, for us it's all about dollar retention. Our churn rate is a little high given our business, but the customers that go big, and they expand pretty quickly. So dollar retention is how I like to think about it. So net dollar retention.
Yep, got it. All right, a top tip for growth stage CEOs like yourself.
So, from my perspective, alignment is the number one key across your entire departments. Got to be aligned around common goal. Got to have everyone singing to the same, page of music.
Nice. All right, a favorite book or podcast that has helped you to grow.
Well, early on in my career, my first founder I worked for in the industry, there's a really interesting book. It was called The Customer Signs Your Paycheck. And I read that book, and it's a great book. And it's just a classic about, customers are the key. And whether you're in sales, whether you're in product, whether you're in marketing, you got to know your customers. And remember, you got to treat them that, they're signing your paycheck. That's how it goes.
Ain't that the truth? All right. Piece of advice that counters traditional wisdom.
Well, I think I shared that earlier, and that is big picture, right? Big picture. It's in the details. It's always in the details, as we said earlier. Yes, big picture is important. You have to set goals and you have to set that big picture. But in order to do that, you really have to have really inside view of your business, and you have to get into the details and
dig. Well said. All right. What is going to be the title of your autobiography?
Relentless.
I like it. Simple. I like it.
Just because we're in this industry's tough. We're in a very well-funded industry with large competitors. And we've got to be relentless in our customers and how we treat our customers. We've got to be relentless in building best products. And we've got to be relentless in growth, in pursuing growth. And I think, whether it's in life or whether it's just in business, and that's what it's all about. So it's not easy. It's not easy scaling a business. You got to have the fortitude to be able to do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. So I am, as I mentioned, I'm about to be a dad for the first time. And in the last few episodes, I've shared a dad joke, which seemed to go over pretty well with both our guests and our listeners. So sorry, but not sorry. I got one for you. So here it is. So why did the employer bring a ladder to the job interview?
No idea.
Because they wanted someone with high aspirations.
That's good. Yeah. I like that. I thought you were going to ask.
I need to get some symbols in here or something like one of those things.
I like how you tied it to the overview of this. I thought you were going to ask me, how do you make a tissue dance?
Ooh, what's that?
You put a little boogie in it.
I like it. Nice. Actually, I have heard that one before. I have heard that one. That's a good one. Well, Thad, you've given a ton to our listeners today and to me. So time for a little bit of self-promotion. How can those listening help you out?
Yeah, well, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, just Thad Price. I'm getting with Talroo and connect, and would love to start a conversation about how we could potentially help your business and give you a preview of our small business product that may be helpful for you as well.
And if you guys are wondering what I think of it, I'm going to be taking a closer look in the coming weeks. So hit me up. Actually, by the time this launches, I'll probably have already taken a look. So hit me up. I'll let you know what I think of it. All signs are good. And Thad, this has been a pleasure. Thanks for sharing your dirt. I know it's not always easy to share your stories, but I'm sure those listening really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Great to be here. Thanks again.
All right. And thank you all for dialing in. Thank you, Orchid Black, for making this possible. Thad, Jim Barnish, out. See you later.